Um, this is about as good as it can be. You're in a bad situation. You're coming off a year in which you went 5-5. You started 3-3. You are just not performing to the standard of LSU football. It's obvious. And then what that does is it creates a negative air around the program, inside the program. You've got uncertainty with people's jobs. You've got uncertainty with transfers. You've got a toxic situation on the outside. Fan interest wanes. None of that is good, and it all was very, very present. And the decision was made last week by Scott Woodward to make a change. And the question automatically comes up, okay, well then, when do we do it, and who's the interim coach? And you look in that room, and there's nobody that jumps off the page as a built-in interim head coach that can come in and salvage things. So you say, hey, coach, you gotta coach it out. And Ed Orgeron obviously agreed to do that and stick with his guys and work as hard as he can to finish off this season and hand the baton to the next guy in as good a shape as he possibly can. Is that a perfect scenario? No, it's not at all. But is it the best in the current situation? I think so. It was time for a change, and one was made.
Yeah, it's just not what you want to see, not what you expected to see, especially this season. And then when you mix kind of the whispers and stuff you've heard outside of football, it's kind of the nail in the coffin. So I think for us, what we're going to do is due diligence. You saw that by him not just making a spur-of-the-moment fire and really not knowing what direction he's going to go in. He's got to do his due diligence. He's got to, check the college recruiting scene, check the college coaches out there, maybe look at the NFL, and just really take his time and really try to find a guy that can put this program in the direction that it was headed in 2019. You just felt like that was a springboard to get you the recruits you needed, the boosters to back the program. Just everything was falling in place for this program to really, take that next step to really be that national powerhouse for the next decade. And you go 7-8 in your next Power 5 conference games, it's just not what you expected, especially after going 15-0 and winning the national championship. So I think last week was a great step for the players to know that we got kids that are talented still on this roster, even though we're injury plagued, and a ton of guys that you would never even think would be playing snaps right now are out there playing snaps. And there's a ton of fighting talent on this roster. I think Woodward's got to find a guy that can really unlock these guys and really have them playing consistent for 12 games throughout a season.
So in terms of the decision to fire Ed Orgeron, I'm looking here at the chat presented by You Forward on the YouTube channel, and they're saying, Hunt, we can now hear your thoughts on the coaching hire. As I've said here and on Tiger Zone, I've been very transparent. I'm not going to call for coaches to be fired or indicate that that's what I believe to be the case. It's just not what I'm going to do when I'm working for LSU on Saturdays. And I'll say this. When Ed Orgeron was hired, the inference was, you hire him, he's going to run the program, he's going to recruit, and he's going to hire the best coaches that money can buy in a league that pays them all north of $1 million. He's going to let them coach the team, and you're going to put out a product that's a talented group with well-paid, great coordinators. The fact of the matter is that did work one time. That year in 18 was pretty good. 19, it worked. You had an offensive coordinator, Steve Ensminger, did a great job. You brought in a passing game specialist who had spent time around Sean Payton and Joe Brady, and it worked. And you had an ace defensive coordinator in Dave Aranda, and you have Corey Raymond, the defensive backs coach. It all worked. It was perfect. But outside of that, way too many misses. And this is not. I would prefer to speak about these things that we know. There are going to be rumors and stories and things swirling around that have been written about different places and talked about different places. I don't know if any of that stuff happened, and that can be conjecture for someone else or a different day. What I do know is that he hired Matt Canada and fired him after a year. What I do know is he hired Bo Pelini and fired him after a year. What I know is that he started with no special teams coordinator and tried to let GAs do it, and they were terrible in special teams, and that didn't work. I know that far too often he made hires like Scott Linehan that were instantly out. Jerry Sullivan, instantly out. Far too often the chairs moved so quickly, and they didn't ever reach that standard of 2019. So, yes, I support Scott Woodward's decision to move the football program in another direction. It doesn't take away from what Ed Orgeron did in 2018 and 2019, but certainly we don't feel like we're really even close to that at this point. When you go up to Lexington, Kentucky, you're down 35-7. That's not great. When you go out to UCLA and you look non-competitive in the second half and they run away from you by 2 scores, that's not a very good UCLA team. It's a decent UCLA team, but that's not the standard that LSU football needs to play at. And so I think that they need to try to make sure that you get there And there's no – somebody asked on Tiger Zone, can O get another shot at coordinators if this doesn't work out this year? No. That was it. It's time.
Yeah, that's just when you have the amount of money that this program produces on a year in and year out basis, the recruits you have right in your backyard in Louisiana, a ton of NFL guys. You have every opportunity to find whatever coach you would like to have to come into this situation and to have success in the SEC and play on national televised games time and time again. The level of standard of play it has to be way better than what it was for the past few seasons. And I know people are trying to put a bow tie on it with COVID and all the things that are going on. Every other school in the country had to deal with that. So to me, that it's an excuse, but it's really not a valid one because every team had to deal with that. So for LSU, I think getting back in the right direction, finding a coach that can really put this program back on that national title wave, back out on that college football wave, really challenge Alabama, challenge A&M. You just don't feel like that at all at this point, and that's really never how you felt. You always felt you had a fighting chance to go up there to Alabama and get a win. It's just those feelings have gone away, and I think to get back to that, you got to find someone that you have a ton of confidence in a head coach, and that's what our athletic department is going to do. So just a tough time right now to be a Tiger, but I think especially winning last week, that helps, and I think having some confidence and some faith for the future, that's going to help as well too.
Look, the guys rallied and played exceptionally hard and well in the game on Saturday, and I think Andre Anthony's speech to the team really played, and I think Glenn Logan coming back and giving them a little shot of life. Some of the older guys really played, and that's what who's going to have to come from now. It's going to have to come from the players because these coaches, while I do believe would prefer to win on every given Saturday, they've now got a situation where their employment status is up in the air. So eyes are going to be wandering elsewhere at times. That is just human nature. I think in pie in the sky land, you could look up and say, these guys now, the air's been lifted. They can, go on about their day without having to worry about whether or not they were going to be fired or retained, all that kind of stuff. That's true, and that the uncertainty doesn't exist, but the certainty is now that things are going to be changing over there big time in 2 months, and so the players are going to have to be the ones that show up, work hard, get to the field, and play as hard as they can. It's not a great situation. I'll be really honest, and it doesn't get any easier in terms of how the schedule looks moving forward. But it's going to have to come down to the players. How bad do they want it?